What's up, guys? Today I wanted to come at you with a budget Lightsworn deck. So I have my budget playmat out. I'm just going to go through the deck pretty quick here. It's 60 cards, so I don't want to take too much time. I'll explain some of the choices that are out of place as we go, but a lot of the choices are going to seem pretty standard. And there's probably ways to upgrade this deck if you're not on a budget, but for now this is just a good option for somebody trying to get into Lightsworn. For the Lightsworns, we only play 3 Wolf and 2 Raiden. The Lightsworn portion of the deck is more of just an engine to get the graveyard full for Fairy Tale Snow. Probably one of the best cards ever printed. Hopefully we don't get the same treatment as the OCG and get Snow limited to 1, but we don't play Solar Recharge, so we don't want to have a whole bunch of extra Lightsworns and we don't want a bunch of dead draws, so this is just kind of a streamlined thing. The Wolves can be dead draws, but you have to play them pretty much because it just is way too good when you mill them. It's free card advantage. So 2 Raiden, 3 Wolf. We play a plant package for the Brilliant Fusion combos. 3 Lone Fire, 2 Scorpio, and 1 Cobra. The only target that you have in your deck for this to search is the Brilliant Fusion, but I don't think many other decks are playing anything too crazy unless you're playing some FTK degeneracy, but I like this ratio the best because if you get the 1 Lone Fire, you're just going to cycle through the other Lone Fires and get to the Scorpio. And I do see why some people play 3 Scorpio, but I'd just rather draw Lone Fire than draw Scorpio itself. So I think it's pretty good this way. Also, there's another card that works with Lone Fire I'll explain in a little bit. The zombie package, this is where stuff starts to get a little weird, but 3 Mizuki, it's pretty standard, 3 Solitaire, and the 1 Spirit Master. All this is pretty standard. Spirit Master is good with Snow. You get its effect when it's banished for a cost. This particular version doesn't play Gold Sark, but you can play Gold Sark along with Giant Rex, which turns Spirit Master on. Spirit Master with Gold Sark and Giant Rex with Gold Sark are both really good free card advantage, basically. 2 Unizombie for the Solitaire to search. You don't really need to play 3. You'd rather draw Solitaire for the same logic of Lone Fire, where you can just cycle through your deck that way. Drawing Unizombie, however, isn't bad. You just prefer to draw the Solitaire so that you can set up your grave with the Mizuki and thin your deck. The weird option, the weird thing we play here, is 2 Necroface. So, for those of you that don't know what Necroface does, when it's normal summoned, you shuffle all banished cards that both players control into the deck. That's face up and face down cards, which is really important. He gains 100 attack for each card that is shuffled in. So that effect doesn't come up often. Sometimes you could just normal summon like a really big Necroface if your opponent is playing Pot of Desires, because we're also playing Pot of Desires. But the part of his effect that I like is his second effect, which is if he's banished, regardless of where he's banished from, so long as he's banished face up, you're going to banish the top 5 cards from both players' deck. I played a similar version to this deck at YCS Atlanta, and my opponent pretty much hated me because he swears up and down how lucky I got with Necroface, even though I triggered Necroface 4 times that turn. So you can call it luck if you will, but I think banishing half your opponent's deck is pretty good. So 2 Necroface. It's limited to 2, otherwise I'd play 3. The next small engine or package or whatever you want to say that we run along with the Necroface is 2 Red Resonator and 2 of the best card in the deck. It's like Fairy Tale Snow and Grass are probably the best card, but this card's up there. This card got a little attention recently at YCS San Diego with the player who played the Grunmaju stun type of deck with all the hand traps and whatever, but I personally like this card a lot with Lightsworn or Lightsworn variants because of Fairy Tale Snow's ability to abuse it. It's not uncommon for this thing to have over like 8k attack, and the fact that it's a level 3 fire also comes up. I'll bring that up a little later, but it's super good. It doesn't activate, so your opponent can't respond. It's a continuous effect. He gains 400 attack and defense for each of your banished cards, and it counts face up and face down cards. So just 1 Pot of Desires makes the guy 4,000 attack. So Pot of Desires plus Fairy Tale Snow is almost lethal if your opponent's open, so that's good. Speaking of Fairy Tale Snow, we play 3 of them, because that's how many we're allowed to play. You're always going to play the most of this card as you can. Hopefully a card doesn't go to 1. I feel like it probably should if I'm evaluating it objectively, but I'm a little biased because I like the card so much, so 3 Snow. And then a lot of weird 1-ofs or kind of bricky cards that, they're not weird, but you have to play these 1-ofs to facilitate the different combos. Goblin, some people play 2. I just play the 1. You pretty much have to play this card because your Invoker typically wants to target Thousand Blades, but if you draw the Thousand Blades, your Invoker won't have a target. So you need to have a kind of a backup plan. If they both get banished, then you can't make the Invoker play off of the Plant Engine, which is pretty rough. And then the last 2 1-ofs that are not associated with the hand traps are Trick Clown and Garnet. Just for Brilliant Fusion. So hand traps, oh man. You know, good old 2017 Yu-Gi-Oh! Get to play a lot of these. 3 Gamma with the 1 driver. Some people play 2 driver, and I've also seen people play 2 Garnet. And the philosophy, I guess, is that if you banish it with Pot of Desires, you want your cards to still be turned on, or if you mill them, you want your cards to still be turned on. But I think that, statistically speaking, it's just the worst possible option. You just have to play like the numbers in your favor and play fewer brick cards so that your cards that can possibly disable your own combos are going to disable you less often. So I'd rather just have the 1-ofs instead of multiples. So 3 Gammas, 2 Ghost Ogre, the 1 Max C, and 3 Ash Blossom. So it's a lot of hand traps, but that's Yu-Gi-Oh! Right now, unfortunately. You pretty much just have to play a bunch of hand traps, and if you don't, then you're just going to let your opponent do whatever they want to do, and generally speaking, that's not a good way to play these days. So, hand traps. And we're going to move on to the spells. Let me clean up this little area here. Alright, so spells. There's a lot of 3-ofs. This is good because of Desires, so you don't really mind banishing certain copies of spells, but you'd like to see 1 of each of these throughout the course of a game, usually. 3 Charge, 3 Brilliant Fusion, 3 Desires, and 3 Left Arm Offering. This lineup seems pretty good. A lot of people recently have been playing 3 Cosmic Cyclones or some amount of Twin Twisters in the deck, and that's probably not wrong. I just didn't really have room to fit that kind of stuff without cutting some of the more fun engines like the Necroface or the Grand Yugioh. If you wanted this to be hyper competitive, then yeah, you could probably just cut the Necroface Grand Yugioh Red Resonator package and put in Cosmic Cyclones and maybe a Gozuki and some other stuff, but I like this particular ratio. Left Arm, a lot of people don't want to play right now because of Ash Blossom, but if you're playing this kind of deck, you're pretty much just going to go all out and hope for the best. So we play the Gammas to try to alleviate Ash Blossom, but you can't Gamma the Left Arm because you have to banish your hand, but I think it's worth it. 5 spells that are 1-ofs. 1 Regeki. This doesn't seem like it needs an explanation, but a lot of lists don't play this card because they play Scarlet Red Dragon Archfiend in the extra deck, which is kind of like a Regeki that you always have access to. That may be correct, so it could be maybe a better option to just play 3 Raiden instead of 2 Raiden and Regeki, but for now I'm going to keep the Regeki in there and see how it goes. 1 Resonator Call. This is to search the Red Resonator. I will explain why that's so important in a minute. 1 Foolish, 1 Soul Charge, and 1 Grass. This card is incredible, unless your opponent is also playing 60 cards, of course. Okay, so that's the main deck, 60 cards. Onto the extra deck, we play the 1 Seraph Knight for the Brilliant Fusion. We play, as far as links, we play Mrs. Radiant, Deco Talker, and Borlo Dragon. You don't really need to play more links than this. Some builds play Firewall or Akashic Magician, but I like that in like a more Lightsworn monster heavy version where you need to mill more for like Judgment Dragon and set up different plays like that, but I think these 3 are fun. For Exceeds, we play the Invoker for the combo, Only one Minerva. This isn't like a Lightsworn centric build, and usually if you resolve it one time, you're not really going to try to do this again on turn 2. I think the one is probably enough. There's some debate to say that you could just cut this Castell that I play to play the second Minerva, but Castell's just a good out to random floodgate cards sometimes, so I like to play the one still. Play the one Baguska, the one Tornado Dragon, and the one Amaterasu. I think this is my favorite Exceed ever printed. Yeah, this guy's super good. He's a Levier on your turn, and he brings back a banished monster on your opponent's turn, so you get to recycle hand traps with Fairy Tale Snow. And Tornado Dragon's really good when you're playing kind of blindly into a match. And with the way the metagame is right now, Tornado Dragon's pretty good versus like Spiral, and Baguska's just good after you make some Omegas and clear your own board out so that you can lock your opponent down. For the Synchros, play the one Michael, the one Black Rose for level 7s. You don't go into these super often, but it does come up with Snow and Unizombie and stuff, so Michael's good utility, and Black Rose is kind of a blowout sometimes if your opponent can't respond to it. And for level 8s, we just play the 2 Omega. Some builds play 3. I'm tight on space because I need to play one more card that I'll show you. I don't think these really require too much explanation. The card's super good. Good with the link mechanic, good in general. And then you play 1 Horse Prince. So this card needs a Fire Tuner and any other monster. So you use Red Resonator, which is why we play the Resonator Call and the 2 copies. And basically when he's special summoned, you can summon a level 3 fire from your deck. But it has a restriction that for the rest of the turn you can't summon anything level 5 or higher. So from your deck you can summon a Lone Fire to extend like Link plays or Xyz plays. In this particular build we don't play rank 3s other than the Invoker, so you're not going to extend in that way. But the most important thing that Horse Prince gets from your deck is Grenmaju. So it doesn't say that you have to summon it in defense position, it doesn't say that it can't attack, it doesn't negate its effect, it just summons it from the deck. So basically, as long as you have access to Horse Prince in your extra deck, the theory is that you always have access to this huge beat stick. If he's in your banish zone, Amaterasu can bring it back. If he's in your graveyard, you can banish it with Snow to then bring it back with Amaterasu, typically. If he's in your hand, you can obviously just play the card. And even if it's in your deck, there are ways to access the card through Horse Prince. So that's the main and the extra deck. I threw together a side deck real quick just to give you some budget options. 3 Ghost Reaper. It's probably one of the cheapest hand traps out right now, and it's pretty good. I side some targets specifically for it for certain matchups, just because you don't want to have to deal with certain extra deck monsters, and the variety of extra deck monsters that you already play in your deck really helps keep this card live. 3 Droll and Lockbird. Best hand trap in the format. Maybe you should be main decking it. Also, it's debatable. This is probably not as good as Ash, but it's pretty good. So I'm going to side that for Spiral matchups and stuff that searches too much. The 2 Twin Twister and the 1 Dark Hole. This is just because I don't main deck any background destruction, and the Dark Hole is just for going second. So I'd like to have basically another board clear if I'm going second. You just side it in every time and see if you draw it. As for the Cherries targets that I play, the 1 Helix for Spiral matchup. It's not as good as everybody thought it was going to be when Spiral first came out, but it's not that bad. The 1 Firewall Dragon. Firewall is pretty good to get out of the way if you're against FTK decks or any type of like loop, or even against Spiral itself, it's still strong. I actually side the 1 Darklaw because this card absolutely destroys your deck, so I think it's good for Cherries. If your opponent makes it game 1 or something and they blow you out, then you at least have a chance to play around it outside of just normal summoning the Snow to flip it face down. And then, of course, for Cherries, we play the Ascension Sky Dragon, the Blood Mephist, and the Mind Hacker for all the crazy rogue decks, like the Synchro and Trickstar combo deck. And then this card's just too good because you banish so much, so you can't afford to just lose to it. For the record, this deck's not budget at all, so I lied. But let me know what you think of the Zombie Swarm profile, and thanks for watching.